And he's lost in this. It's not the exact same line, but he's now lost in this structure that we saw where we got that C5 extension. The hanging pawn's a similar game to a few games ago, and he's down 2 games. Magnus lifting his eyebrows, kind of like, well, what did you expect, I guess? Magnus says, right now I'm happy with my 2-game lead. Hikaru needs to focus. I'll make a quick point about the headphones, not because any of the viewers care, but some of the stronger chess players might be wondering what the rules are there. A gentleman's agreement between the 2 players allowed both of them to use headphones and listen to music, even though it wasn't our rules that we'd prefer that to not happen. Not something we enforce very highly. The future of worrying about whether or not someone's using assistance is really based on statistics anyway. I don't think either Magnus Carlsen or Hikaru Nakamura is looking for anybody to tell them anything. If anything, they usually remind me in our pregame calls, how quickly can I mute you, Danny, so that you can do your thing and I'll do mine. They're not interested in listening to us.
Not at all. In fact, we would hurt them far more than we'd help them. But you can play Guess the Music. I have no idea what they're listening to.
Yeah, let's play Guess the Music. I've told Magnus that we will be asking him what he's listening to on the spot. I said, hashtag, please don't say Coldplay. But no, somehow Hikaru Nakamura, we have lost his call. Not exactly sure where he went. We will be adding him back soon. You can see his...
I think after another loss, he wanted to hide his face for a little bit.
Maybe he wants to hide his face because he's just that frustrated. We'll see. But I don't think that's the case. We will try to add him back in just a moment. But for now, since we're missing Hikaru's face, I guess we'll bring back our faces. We know how much you guys want to see action there. All right, so what's happening here?
It looks like Magnus is trying to break through on the queen side when pawn to b4. It looks like a pawn is hanging, right? Bishop on f8 and pawn on c5 attack b4.
Absolutely.
But the problem is that open c file will be disastrous for black. So if c4, now bishop takes,
there would have been a queen coming in. So that means Hikaru's in a little bit of trouble in terms of how to deal with the threats. Did not have time to gobble up that b pawn. What's the evaluation overall in this position? We're going to get a battle on the c file. Looks like white has to be a little better here because of the space gained and sort of the tempos being gained. What a strong move.
Yeah, because if bishop d6 now, the problem is pawn to a5.
And Hikaru Nakamura will lose a piece. That move threatens bishop to c7, everybody, trapping the queen on b6 and forces what is just not an ideal move, right? It forces Hikaru Nakamura to retreat with the queen. Although, I guess it could have been worse there, right?
It definitely could have been worse. I was wondering if instead of queen to d8, perhaps Hikaru could have went a6, and a move you don't really think about it, given the situation, but it seemed like it was possible to try to give the a7 square for the queen and then unravel that way. But, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. It's not like, usually, that's why rook a2 is a great move. Usually you are concerned when a rook is barreling down on a queen on an open file. I was about to say that, it's a queen facing another queen, which is not that big of a deal. But now rook a2 coming to c2 will be quite dangerous for black to deal with, especially because that queen on c8 doesn't really have moves. So in the meantime, black can try to castle and then move the queen over to e8, because the e8 square will be vacated, right? If you castle, the queen can run over to e8, but you're very cramped. And that's the big plus in white's position, is that black is especially cramped. And white is definitely quite a bit better.
Yeah, in fact, it's hard to see how he's going to deal with the threat of the. I mean, it's not the queen being trapped, but whatever the tactics are. We talked about a battery, everybody. That's when 2 pieces are lined up on the same line, and Magnus Carlsen preparing to use a battery. Like he means it on the C file. He's going to shake what his mama gave him, and things are going to get weird over here on the queen side. Not exactly sure what Hikaru can do here. Suggestions?
I think you might have to bite the bullet and castle and move your queen over to e8. I mean, it doesn't look fun, but I don't really see a direct way for white to take advantage, right? So we castle, we get our king out the way, and then the queen is a square. So, another thing is there actually aren't great discoveries with that bishop, right? Like, even if you have 2 moves in a row, rook c your castle, rook c2 is coming, of course,
right?
And if the bishop moves, and there he goes.
Right, exactly. Where's the next move for the battery? I guess Carlsen will show us what the next move is here in a moment. But that's a nice move, knight e8, a good defensive maneuver if Hikaru Nakamura can weasel his way out of this bind. Not the best opening choice, clearly, from black, but...
So I was wondering if bishop d8 here is now possible.
You're going to allow something like bishop here.
And I'm going to take it.
You're going to sack
I'm sacking
the queen.
my queen for the bishop and the rook, and I think there's enough compensation given the
Well,
position.
enough compensation to be clearly worse, but yeah.
I don't mean it to be better. I mean enough compensation to fight for, have better chances of fighting
Exactly,
for a draw.
exactly.
That's important to note, is that sometimes when you are worse and it's positionally worse,
right.
it's oftentimes helpful to go to a slightly materially worse game, but getting a much better position.
That was not and he's going to go for what you just talked about, I think, because knight f6, allowing the knight to come to e5, just reminds this queen that she has no place else to go. And now Hikaru deciding he likes your idea of potentially sacrificing. Yeah, those making comments in the chat. We have lost the camera of Hikaru Nakamura trying to reconnect it. He has not transformed himself into a tiger. He may be a Transformer or an Animagus if you're a Harry Potter fan. What in the world? Baby girl.
Queen b8, bishop c5, going after the rook.
He's going after the rook the old-fashioned way, right? A little bit of pickle tickle there.
Look at that.
he's taking on b6 and
this is actually a great way for Hikaru to unravel here, because now for a takes b6, which is what I suspect is that for a takes b6, well, actually, maybe here the move pawn to a6 is what Magnus should play. And the reason why pawn to a6 might be powerful is it opens up the c6 square and allows the knight or the queen to infiltrate. If pawn takes b6, the bishop will just capture, and here he goes pawn to a6. I'm guessing the move real well now.
Yeah, give the people a chance, Robert. The funny thing here is that if Hikaru weasels his way out of this, it'll be a huge, just kind of psychological, step in the right direction, given he's lost 2 games in a row. And again, the thing I'm drawing as the most important thing right now is that the time advantage for Magnus Carlsen is suggestive of things not going Nakamura's way. He's the faster player. He wants to prove it, and he's not being able to do it. Will this be a tale of the entire match as we get into the Blitz, and what happens in Bullet? That remains to be seen. But right now, Magnus is in the driver's seat on time.
And pawn takes. Oh, he went queen c8 first. Is a move. I don't understand that move. Denny, here if now knight to d6. Knight d6 protects the bishop on d8, right, because it opens up the rook. And now throws knight takes b5, protecting the rook on a6. Oh, but queen to b8, that's the big... No. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Knight d6.
Right.
If you have queen to b8, you're hitting rook and knight.
And then knight takes b5.
Or, yeah, knight takes b5.
There's a move knight to c6 coming that maybe... Oh, Hikaru... No, look at that. Magnus agrees with you.
Knight c6, bishop c7.
He just shook his head.
Knight c6, bishop c7. Look at this. Knight c6, can you put on the board for a second here? Bishop c7, knight e7 check.
Winning on the board. Hashtag Matetown USA. That would be sweet. Now, Magnus is still dejected, though. We saw him shake his head, and he doesn't do that lightly. He didn't go for this, but I don't think knight c6 was forcing bishop. Exactly. I was thinking Hikaru would just play rook d7. So Magnus still in the driver's seat. This queen is annoying, and there are tactics that can lose the game on the spot.
I'm not so sure he's in the driver's seat. His queen looks pretty trapped.
Magnus shaking his
head. He's down 2 pawns. So now a move like rook to a8. The idea of going a5, a4.
Just running this pawn till kingdom come is what's about to happen.
I don't care about my pawn on f7. The pawn on f7 is meaningless.
Yeah, Hikaru agrees with you.
I think I'm winning Guess the Move.
If you're not a part of the Guess the Move, Robert, although we love your confidence. The point is that something has gone terribly wrong here. If you're Magnus Carlsen, he was dominating out of the opening, up a queen, the pressure on the c file. But as you highlighted earlier in the match, Nakamura, one of his trademarks is getting out of lost position, right? Very resourceful player. One of Carlsen's trademarks, too, to be totally honest. They're both incredibly resourceful. But I think that if Hikaru even draws this game, it's sort of a moral victory.
Absolutely.
And if he wins this game, it is more than a moral victory. It's whatever, I don't know, insert what it is. It's a victory, scoreboard, right? What's going to happen now, though? This was a nice move because it prevents a5 without allowing rook takes b6. If you win my knight, I win your knight.
But that might be okay because the outside pass pawn, we've talked about this before, it's very important.
What happens? I think Hikaru is probably calculating lines like this right now. The evaluation is, will my pawn tell the tale or will I regret having given this rook the b pawn? So Hikaru is probably calculating such lines, and several moves. He decided he didn't want to go for that. Switches things to the c file to go for some back rank check ideas, and now he's launching the attack against Magnus' king.
How do you protect the knight? Knight d2 is coming next move. I don't see a single way to defend that knight. I think you just knight
the way
takes
you protect the knight is you get the king out of dodge, and then you look for counterplay over here. I think you're going to see rook takes g7, followed by some swindle stuff. But wow, what a comeback by Nakamura in this game. I mean, seriously, to win this game as black will be we were looking at a 3-game deficit potentially.
And Nakamura has never faced a 3-game deficit in the GM Blitz battles. And for those of you asking about Nakamura's webcam and why he's not...
He's just confirmed to us something's wrong with Skype, but we can't ask him to troubleshoot it while playing Blitz. I'm going to ask him to do his best. Okay.
He's 33 seconds left in this game. We will get it fixed, everybody. Let's, he's still playing his chess. He's still doing well, but he'll get it back running soon, hopefully. And on the board right now, that passed A pawn, I mean, how do you stop it? You can take all the pawns. Oh, so right now, Magnus is trying to go knight takes d5, followed by knight f6, and checkmate, rook g8 mate. Now, that's a ridiculously long story and is not actually going to happen, but that is an ideal situation for Magnus. Now, the pawn can just roam to and he went a4. And Hikaru has 19.2 seconds left. Now, the 2-second increment will mean that he probably will not lose on time. But right now, Magnus is getting a lot of pawns.
Way too many pawns, unless Nakamura comes up with the queen. Trying to adjust the camera angles there, keeping our players' faces. We want the stars to be seen by the players. So apologies for the technical shuffle buffle there. But
there might be 5 pawns for a rook at the end of this.
Because Magnus is clapping. He says, "Congratulations, Hikaru." I don't know what he does, but you know what I love about, I mean, seriously, if you're out there, chess fans, how awesome is this? When was the last time Magnus Carlsen clapped over the board versus Sergei Karyakin, right? I mean, the thing about this environment is you really get the players in a comfort zone, and you get to have an intimate view into how they really feel about their chess moves.
And just to show you, the points after knight a2, it looks like it stops the pawn, but after knight a2, rook b2 check,
Boomtown.
king takes f1, and he resigned. And for the reason why, I was going to show you why, is after king f1, rook takes a2, and even if the rook takes b6, you just move your rook over and the pawn roams free to get a queen.
There's just no way to prevent the pawn from becoming a queen. And that is more than a moral victory there for Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus is mad. That was a huge turnaround. And Nakamura, again, if you look at things just a few moves ago as we were talking about, this was just Carlsen in complete control of a queen and somehow swindled himself into overextending and overestimating his chances. Not sure what's happening here. Waiting for the rematch there.
I'm not sure what's happening, but a nice win by Hikaru, who, well, he made it through. I mean, he was at some point he was just so much worse. He was pretty much lost. The engines would definitely tell us that's the case.